Hey guys, it's Jenny here. Welcome back to my channel. So if you couldn't tell by the title, today I'm going to be doing my October wrap up. So to be honest, my reading wasn't where I wanted it for October, but it was a progress from September. So I ended up reading 7 books in October, which isn't too shabby. I kind of have a wide variety of lengths and sizes of the books as well, so that's a big plus. So we're just going to hop right into it. I will say that I ended up with 3 5-star books, 2 4-star books, a 3.5 out of 5-star book, and a 2.5 out of 5-star book. So overall, I had a pretty decent reading month, so we're just going to hop right into it. So the first book that I read in the month of October was Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I buddy read this with one of my subscribers. Her name was Lindsay. I enjoyed this book so much that I flew through it and ended up leaving her behind and reading too much because I had forgotten my other book that day. And I just flew through this. So essentially this is about a girl named Claudia whose best friend goes missing. She doesn't show up for school, which is totally unlike her, and she's the only one that seems to notice. And she just kind of never shows up. It is kind of it's her thought process and her emotions going through her best friend going missing. And it's like a really, really good mystery / thriller. If you like forensic files or criminal minds or anything that solves with solving, I don't know how to put this, solving stuff and like mystery or whatever, definitely. Trigger warning for domestic abuse, domestic violence. Oh my god, what was that other thing? I can't remember it. But definitely for domestic violence and mental illness, so, and grief. But I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I really loved this book, and I'm so glad that I ended up picking this up at that Barnes & Noble sale on a whim, and also just reading this in October because it set the whole mood for the month. Second book I read in October was Far From You by Tess Sharp. So this follows a girl named Sophie Winters, who has nearly died 2 times now. The first time she almost died was in a car accident, which gave her tremendous injuries that led to her being prescribed medicine that eventually became a huge addiction for her. So she ended up having to go to rehab. She ended up getting herself clean. And the second time she almost dies is when she and her best friend are approached by a gunman in the woods. Her best friend does not make it out alive, but when she comes to, she actually is sent back to rehab because she was framed and blamed for a what do they call it? They cast partial blame on Sophie, claiming that it was a drug deal gone wrong. And so basically this is it has flashbacks, so it kind of goes between what used to happen before when her best friend was alive and then now, which is her solving the mystery. I mean, this was pretty good. It took me a really long time to get into, but I really did like it. So I gave that a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in the month of October was You by Carolyn Kepnes. I actually listened to this on audiobook, and it was okay. I mean, I thought this was going to be a lot more creepy than it was, and I mean, sure, there were parts that I'm like, what the heck? But overall, just, I didn't like it that much, you know? Like, it was just a whole lot more sexually oriented than I thought it would be, and just odd. Like, this guy is just weird. So basically this is set, it follows our main character, Joe Goldberg, who meets this girl named Beck at his bookstore, and essentially becomes literally obsessed with her and stalks her, like, badly. So he ends up killing those that are getting away of them being in a relationship. He steals her phone, stalks her every move, that kind of stuff. And so the way that they have this written is that you are supposed to be back. So it's always like, you write back. I love having you at the shop. You say, and I can tell that you just sat up. So, yeah. I mean, the perspective was meant to be really scary and creepy, but the content kind of fell flat. I know a lot of people love this book, and I personally thought the TV show was a little bit better. The TV show was really close. I didn't finish it. I watched like 2 episodes, but from what I saw, it was really close, and that part I liked about it, but the book was weird. It's a weird book. So I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. I listened to this one on audiobook as well. I really loved this book. So this is about a girl named Makani who comes to live with her grandmother after her parents disown her after an incident in her hometown of Hawaii. So she's living with her grandma in Nebraska, and all of a sudden all of these kids at her school start getting brutally murdered, and one by one they start just getting killed off. So the body count rises. She and her friends start to form together a plan and try to profile the killer. And this book just took me by surprise. I was so invested in it the entire time. Like, it was so good. I mean, the killer isn't somebody that we were personally invested in, but I guess the story in general and the victims were where it was at. And I just really enjoyed it. It was like the perfect creepy book for October. Like, okay, we're just sitting in our homes, home alone, and somebody comes in and murders you, cuts your ears off. Like, had a hard time going outside after reading this one. So I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I listened to this on Scribd. I really liked this book as well. So basically this is about a girl named Alice Proserpine. So she and her mom have been on the run for as long as she can remember. Her mom grew up in an odd sort of home. Her grandma is the author of one of the world's most desired fairy tale stories called The Tales of the Hinterland. So her grandma lives on the Hazelwood, which is an estate. And yes, they've always been on the road trying to stay one step ahead of their bad luck. So when her grandmother dies alone on her estate, she learns how bad her bad luck can really get. Her mother gets stolen away by a figure who comes from the hinterland, which is the land that her grandma was writing about. The only message left behind for Alice is stay away from the Hazelwood. So she teams up with one of her grandma's superfans named Ellery Finch, and they combine their efforts in search for her mother, therefore delving into the hinterland. And I thought this book was super good. The beginning and the middle were really creepy and like so twistedly good. They kind of gave you like Twisted Grimm's fairy tale vibes, I guess, and the plot twists were really good. However, the ending kind of confused me a bit, so that's where it fell flat. I still gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because I really loved the beginning and most of the middle, but just kind of like the last 100 pages were like, wait, what? I'm so confused. So yeah. The next book I read in October was Empire Storms by Sarah J. Maas. So many feels. This is book 5 in the Throne of Glass series. So yeah, this has been a long time coming. You guys have known that I've been on like page 175 since June, and it's October and I finally finished it. So this book. I don't know what I can say about this without giving anything away, and I'm sure you guys have heard me explain Throne of Glass like a bajillion times, but I really loved this book. It took me about 200 pages to really get truly invested in it, but once I did, I could not put it down, because once it gets about 100 or like around 100 pages when the action starts, but I hit a little dead zone at about page 175. But the action just doesn't stop. Like when you hit page 200, it's one thing after the other. And you're kind of following a couple different perspectives. You got different people trying to find each other. And like the whole story is them coming together and each kind of group being on their own adventures. It was so good. And I cried so many times. If you guys have seen my reading vlog of finishing this, you know how often I cried. Oh my god, it was so good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. And finally, the book that I just finished yesterday, but I'm still counting towards October, is Slasher Girls and Monster Boys, which is an anthology of spooky horror stories perfect for October. Like, holy Moses. These stories were so good. So yeah, there are 14 stories. Why did I hold up a 4? There are 14 stories in here from various different authors, and I did average it out, so I will kind of go over a little tidbit from each story. I actually wrote in my book. So overall, I had 1 1-star, 2 2-stars, 2 2.5 stars, 1 3-star, 2 3.5 stars, 3 4-stars, no 4.5 stars, and 3 5 stars. So, the first story, which was The Birds of Azalea Street by Nova Ransuma, I gave 2.5 stars. I don't really remember it because this was one I read last year, but I do remember it was really weird and hard for me to understand, kind of like how I have struggled with most of her work. So, yeah. The second story, In the Forest Dark and Deep by Carrie Ryan. I gave that 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. It was a twisted Alice in Wonderland retelling. I cannot speak highly enough about that story. It was just so chilling and creepy. Like, you can picture the scenes so well, and it creeps you out. I read that story a couple times. So, the next story was Emmeline by Kat Winters, and I gave that a 3.5 stars. And I'm pretty sure that this was a historical, like, ghoulish story, and I remember kind of liking it, but it was at the same time a little bit confusing, so I gave that a 3.5. Like I said, I read that last year, so that's where my confusion's coming. And so the next story was Verse, Chorus, Verse by Leigh Bardugo, and I gave that one a 3.5 stars. This was the final one that I read last year, and I'm pretty sure it was about this famous girl who goes into rehab, and I remember being super creeped out by it, so that's why I gave it the rating that I did, but I cannot for the life of me remember what the story was about. So yeah, now the confusion is over because I read the rest of these stories in the past couple days. So the next story was Hide and Seek by Megan Shepherd, and I really loved that story. I gave that one a 5 out of 5 stars. Basically, it was about this girl who gets killed by her stepdad, and one of the urban legends that her grandma used to tell her about comes to life. Crow Cullum. So instead of just reaping her soul, she decides to play a game with death. And it could be any game. She chose hide and seek. So she had 24 hours to win back her life in a fatal game of hide and seek. And that story had me going. I thought it was really cool. So the next one was The Dark, Scary Parts and All by Danielle Page. I gave that a 2-star. It kind of had like Frankenstein and Hades and Persephone vibes, and it was really good at first, but the middle and the ending I didn't like. I just didn't like them. It was just really rushed, and yeah. So the next story was The Flicker, The Fingers, The Beat, and The Sigh by April Genevieve Cholke. And wow, I really liked that story. It was inspired by Carrie and Psycho. So I gave that a 4 stars. Basically, it was about this group of teenagers who are driving around the road telling urban legend stories, and all of a sudden this girl runs out in front of the car and they hit her, and they kind of describe how disposing of the body affects their lives, and it also flashes back and tells the story of going to high school with her, and I thought that aspect was really cool. So it was just so chilling. So the next story was Fat Girl with the Knife by Jonathan Mayberry. I gave that a 3 stars. So basically it was about this girl who gets bullied, and she's always getting revenge on her school bullies. And then one day she's in the bathroom, and the mean girl that's always bullying her comes in crying. She works up the courage to go out there. The girl turned into a zombie, so she starts going on a zombie killing spree. I honestly didn't like it that much, but I did get through the story very fast, and because I was kind of intrigued by it, I was like, wait, what? So, yeah. Then was Sleepless by Jay Kristoff, which I actually thought was a really good story. So this was about internet messaging, IMing. So it kind of gets told part text message, part regular text, and these two kids are talking. It was weird. So they decided to meet up, and there are just so many twists and turns. I was so confused, but it would, like, I wasn't confused, I guess. Like, it made perfect sense to me, and then, like, a bunch of different plot twists happened, and I was just so shook by it. But they were, like, really good plot twists. I couldn't even believe it. So next was M by Stefan Bachman. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. So this was about a blind girl who lives in this creepy manor with a bunch of aristocrats. And she's walking down the stairs to go to dinner one day, and she literally runs into a dead body hanging from the ceiling. So the killer approached her, but not before she screamed, so she didn't get killed. And it's all about her trying to find the killer in the manor without sight. So I thought that was really interesting. I was always really tense, like wondering what was going to happen, because essentially she's without sight. So yeah. The Girl Without a Face by Marie Lu scared the living crap out of me. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Oh my god. So, I can't even describe it, but basically the main character, he had done something very bad at a party, and it led to one of the girls killing herself in a closet, and ever since then he had a problem with closets. Well, the problem that he was having with the closets was they wouldn't open. They would, like, lock. And then he started, like, having these really bad nightmares, and the closet would just open, and he would see this girl without a face around in it. Oh my god, I was like, I had my hand like this, like, the whole time I was reading. I'm like, I don't do stuff coming out of closets, guys. Next was A Girl Who Dreamed of Snow by McCormick Templeman, which I DNF'd. I couldn't even get into it, like, at all. So that was the one that got us 1 star. Next was Stitches by A.G. Howard. I gave that a 2 stars. Man, it was weird. It was morbid. Like, really, really morbid. I was like, heck, what? No. So basically, it's about these girls who lose their mother. It's Frankenstein inspired. These girls lose their mother and have to group these kids. It's twin girls and a boy. They lose their mother in a storm one night, and so they're left with their father, who's drunk. He's abusive, yada yada yada. And then this guy called the Collector comes, and essentially this 13-year-old girl is amputating her father's limbs, giving them to the Collector. The Collector brings new limbs, and it kind of makes him a better person. It was weird. It was morbid. Like, the ending had me all messed up. It was oof. Then the last one was On the I-5 by Kendar Blake. I gave this a 2.5 stars. Honestly, it was really confusing. I don't I couldn't even tell you what it's about. But I averaged it out and this book got a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, that was my October wrap up. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Comment down below if you have read any of these books and enjoyed them. So yeah, thank you all for watching.